The topic for today is about your leadership journey, your life journey. But also, I was reading some of the chapters of your book where you've talked about management and leading. But it's interesting that it's, as you refer to it, leading is not about yourself alone, but also creating other champions. So while you have to be a champion, you have to be a champion of other people as well. So Shiv, I think I have lots of questions for you, and I know the audience has a lot as well. I'd maybe request you to start and share your life journey with us a little bit, the highs and lows, the triumphs through some of the stories that you're very good at telling us. And then after that, we would like to come back to you and have a chat with you. Over to
Sure.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranjal, for those kind words. I'm a IT team. Will you put up my slides? I have about 15 slides, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just give you some thoughts, and then we are in a conversation with Pranjal. So first of all, welcome to the SYMP. I think it's a fantastic platform, especially for young people to meet professionals from various disciplines and for you to get a hang of what they have done or what they will do. Next slide, please. So the whole concept of an SYMP was an idea from my ex-boss, Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan. He was my boss in Hindustan Lever. And when he was AIMA president, he started this. And the legacy continues after many, many years. And so we should all thank him for this wonderful idea. Next slide, please. So here's my journey. I come from a family of bureaucrats and doctors. We have lots of IPS officers, lots of IAS officers, lots of doctors in the family. I think last count we had some 30, 40 doctors and many, people in bureaucracy. So it was only natural and the wish of my parents, certainly for me to be a bureaucrat. So they're extremely keen that I become an IAS or an IPS officer, which I did not. Okay, so this was one of the things where there was a departure from what family tradition was. Next slide, please. My early schooling and almost everything was in boarding schools. And boarding schools, as you know, are about discipline, teamwork, respect for teachers, etc. So since I was in boarding school at a very early young age, I learned to be self-sufficient in almost everything. You had to do everything yourself. You had to be the master of your own emotions. You had to control your emotions. You had to display your emotions, whatever it was. And the only real authority figure that you respected and you really looked up to were the teachers. So I had a lot of respect for my teachers right from day one. And I personally believe that teaching is one of the most noblest professions. And that's why when anybody asks me to come and teach, I always say yes, because I believe that teachers are the people who shape future generations. Next slide, please. So in school and college, I was into sport, apart from obviously studies. And I was the editor of my school magazine, my campus magazine, both in engineering as well as in business school. So what boarding school did, or what my teachers did, was to actually shape me as an all-rounder. This is something very important. I think you cannot be just good at one thing. Like you cannot be just good at studies. You cannot be good at only sport. You have to have a wide range of things that you're good at. And I think that's the real benefit which I had going to boarding school and having the right teachers. The ability to be an all-rounder. Next slide. I never planned to be in management, honestly. When I started my engineering degree in Chennai at IIT Madras, I never thought I would ever get into management. But by the time I was into my third year, a lot of my seniors said, hey, Shiv, we think you have managerial capability in you. And I think you should go to an IIM. They were the first people actually who, put that thought into my mind to say, maybe you can be a manager. Otherwise, I was thinking of maybe going abroad, doing masters in science or something like that. And they were the people who, put that idea into my head. After that, I took a number of management courses. Professor Anantharaman was a management teacher, a professor at IIT Madras. I used to go to his class diligently, and I got excited by the concept of management, which simply stated is you have some resources, you need to produce some output, and that journey from taking the resources into whatever is the output, either in product terms or in service terms or in people emotion terms, is what management is all about. So that's how I got into management. So I didn't start by saying I want to be a manager. So remember that. I come from a family of bureaucrats. I was doing engineering, and then suddenly this happened. Next. Then I went to B school. In B school, I got fascinated with the concept of management and with the concept of marketing. And in B school, believe it or not, that's Peter Drucker to the right, and that's Michael Porter to the left. I would write to all the professors. I wrote to Peter Drucker, I wrote to Michael Porter, I wrote to Benson Shapiro when I was a student. And I said, hey, you know what? I am the student in this B school in Calcutta. Will you kindly send me all your articles? I'm keen to read them. Believe it or not, all of them sent me all their articles in a nice folder. I used to be the recipient of all these articles and I would read them. And all my classmates would joke about it. All my classmates would say, okay, Shiv is only talking to professors, he's not interested, with us, etc., etc. So I was the butt of many class joke about my, links with Drucker and Porter. Drucker was actually very nice because remember, he was the preeminent guru of management. He was kind enough to write back. He was kind enough to offer advice. And after I started my career also, he said, hey, if you want to come and spend a week in Santa Clara, you're most welcome. But I didn't have the money then. And when you're a management trainee, you can't go to your company and say, you know what, I'm going to meet Drucker for a week, so give me a holiday. Nobody will give that. And that would have been the end of my career. So, but this fascination for management theory is something which developed in college. And I believe that everybody in any discipline must have a good combination of theory and practice. Many times people don't know the theory and hence are not able to adapt to the practice. Many times they just have the practice, they don't know why something has started. I'm a great believer in first principles, and I always try and see why did something start, who started it, why did they start it, what is the logic behind it. Okay, so this is what I used to do in B school. Next slide. I wanted to be good at marketing. Okay, so whether it was advertising, marketing, brand building, etc. I took a lot of courses in marketing, did well in marketing at the top of my class. And I must have read every single article in JMR or whatever it was in the library. And I did a term paper, believe it or not, on strategy in my second year. And I never knew I'd do a strategy job. I ended up doing a strategy job now, 5 years ago. Right through, I've done general management jobs. So I did this strategy term paper for Professor Ramanul Majumdar. And Professor Majumdar and Sudas Roy have been two teachers who influenced a lot of my passion for marketing and management in my B school. Next slide, please. Then I worked, the sum total of my career is in Hindustan Lever, Nokia, PepsiCo, and ABG. Nokia is possibly one of the finest companies and finest cultures that I worked in, and that's why I pull them out there. Nokia was a very small company and a nothing company in India when I joined. We became India's largest multinational with $4 billion turnover, very good market share, outstanding company. We built an absolutely fantastic team. So that's something I will always be proud of. Okay, Hindustan Lever shaped me. In those days, Hindustan Lever used to be the training ground for CEOs and CXOs. I don't know, I can say the same today, but HLL was a fantastic company. I owe a lot to HLL. PepsiCo was a very different journey. PepsiCo was a loss-making company, which I had to turn around in the time that I was there, which we did, which was very good. And that profit number hasn't been reached after that, whatever we achieved in 2017. In ABG, I do a staff role. I'm the head of corporate strategy for the conglomerate, which is about $60 billion. I also run the global textiles business, which is across many countries in Southeast Asia and Europe. So this is where I worked, the sum total of my experience. Next slide, please. One of the things and why I'm here is what I call giving back to society. I've been involved with All India Management Association from 2007. That's when they called me to do the first speech in Trident Hotel in Mumbai, where I was asked to speak on the role of multinationals and how multinationals viewed India. After that, I've been on the board of AIMA Ahmedabad. I'm currently on the board of AIMA Udaipur. I used to be on the audit committee and board of AIMA Calcutta. I'm currently on the board of XLRI. I'm also on the board of Xavier Institute of Management. I believe every professional has a duty to give back to society. Only if we give back to society will we actually see a better society in the future world. A lot of people say, I don't have time for it. If you don't have time for society, society will not have time for you. That's my simple thing. So I've never refused an invitation from Rekha or AIMA. If I can manage it, I try and do it. Okay, so I would say, whatever you do, try and give back to society. What we can give, each of us is not Bill Gates that we can give $400 million or $500 million, but we can give something very precious, which is our time. And giving your time to your friends, giving your time to society, giving your time to alma mater, giving your time to the industry body are all very good examples of what you can do with your time. So please do think of giving back to society. Next slide, please. So having given you a quick snapshot of where I come from and what I did, I want to leave you with 5 thoughts, and then we can have a Q&A chat, whatever Pranjal wants to do. My 5 thoughts for you are as follows. Next slide. This is what I've distilled over my career and my life. First, you have no control over where you started, but you have control of where you will end. So don't take your starting point as the reason to be at an end point. You could be born into a middle class family, I was born into a middle class family, a lower middle class family, a rich parents, whatever it is. You can be born into Chandigarh, you can be born into Delhi, you can be born into Bangalore like I was. But what you do in your life is in your hands. Where you started absolutely has no relevance, especially in today's world. So don't look back, look forward is my simple message to each and every one of you. Look ahead. The world is full of opportunities, especially at your young age. Next slide, please. Thought number 2 for you, reinvent yourself and reskill yourself continuously. I remember when I joined Nokia, all the Nokia boys and girls said, this guy has only sold shampoos, he sold tea, he sold detergents, what will he teach us? I spoke to at least 200 people before I went and joined Nokia. I knew more about Nokia from the outside than anybody else knew. I did the same thing when I joined PepsiCo. I did the same thing when I joined ABG. You need to constantly reinvent yourself and reskill yourself. Your degree, whatever it is, will not be valid 5 years after the degree is done and dusted. It is skills which matter. It's not degrees anymore. So reskill yourself continuously. Before the pandemic, YouTube, there are 450 million people from India on YouTube every day. They spend 90 minutes a day on YouTube. Number 1 is streaming, entertainment. Number 2 is learning. Number 3 is shorts. Learning was number 5 before the pandemic. After the pandemic, learning is number 2. So the whole country is reinventing and reskilling yourself. If you do not reinvent and reskill yourself, you will fall behind. It's in your hands. Today, you don't need to go to a physical school or college to reskill yourself. You can do it online. Third thought for you. Next slide, please. Be a professional to the word. Never be a sycophant. I've seen many people from my ex-companies, etc., be sycophants. Sycophants are people who do not have confidence in themselves. If you're a professional, you're good at your work, you don't need to be a sycophant. You can always walk with your head held high wherever you go. I've never been a sycophant. I've never encouraged sycophancy. So Rekha will tell you, when I was the president of AIMA, Rekha and I would have the most fiercest fights and arguments non-stop. But my respect for her never diminished as a result of all those arguments and challenges. So you should build in that challenge, and you should always encourage people to challenge you and to give you feedback. So please be a professional to the word, to the core of being a professional. Next thought. Always give more than you take. The world, unfortunately, we have more takers than givers. But I found that people who are more givers than takers tend to win more in life, because more people want to work with them, more people want to deal with them. And one of the simplest things I would tell you is share as much information as you have. Whatever information I get, I send it to as many people as possible. Because I think everybody is smart enough to come to the same conclusions if they have the same information. So hoarding information, which was a trend about 10, 20 years ago, is no longer, valuable today. You cannot hoard information. More and more people have it. So give your time, give away information, and trust me, I'm a living example of that. You'll get more when you actually share. Okay, I'm an absolute living example of that. Next thought, please. And the last thought. Stand for something, else you'll fall for anything. So you must have a set of core principles that you stand for, like integrity, like being a contributor, like being a collaborator, like wanting to give back to society. Okay, so stand for something. Ask yourself, what defines me as a person? If you stand for something, then you will not fall for anything, because that is your North Star. And it's, please don't say that I'm 15 or I'm 18, I'm 20. I don't know what I stand for. These are what are called values, the values you stand for. Some you get from your parents, some you get from your teachers, some you get from your surrounding. But you must be clear what you stand for. If you're very clear what you stand for, then you'll always win in life, because then you know how to take away the distractions and how to avoid things which are not in line with what you stand for.